really brought me forward in a huge way. Rita Barcher, I refer to an incident that occurred after my first phone call with Rita Barcher as Christmas in July, because she sent me a packet of information from a family reunion that she hosted at her home in 1980, I believe. And it had a family tree kind of roughly sketched out on a manila folder, and gave me names and information. And Rita, I'm sure I called at least 3 times, and Rita, in a very, very patient way, explained and re-explained, okay, this person is related to who, and got married to that person, and this was their family. And so, I mean, the quality of the work early on is due really to not only Rita's patience. Rosemary Barcher, I had a conversation that was absolutely delicious, because she's been an observer of the Seidenspinner family since, well, she said it, 1918. And she was able to provide some really interesting detail about family history and family relationships that really give some color to the document that was ultimately produced. And then also speaking to Marion Barcher and Catherine Seidenspinner Latito, all of the input that I got from them really helped me to establish a firm foundation from which I was able to go out and search for the rest of you folks. And then there were some very, very dry periods and times when I really felt like, what am I pursuing this for? What's the point? And there were a number of people, 2 of whom were supposed to be here today. One had to back out last night because of a death in her family. But Camille Moffett-Bertram of the Mouse Heart Branch and Marion Barcher, and I'm sure they didn't even realize it, but their comments were always so uplifting and kind and encouraging to me that there were times when I would get that, I need to talk to my lawyer, or you're trying to scheme me out of my money, when I would say, you know, it's just not worth it. And sure, unbeknownst to you, it was really your enthusiasm for what I was doing that really spurred me on. So I thank you very, very much for that. How did it all get started? 3 days before 9/11, my wife and my 3 children traveled to the Statue of Liberty, and when you buy a ticket, you get an automatic stop at Ellis Island. And I put into the family record search engine that they have on Ellis Island the name of the only ancestor I knew, and that was my great-grandfather, Pius Seidenspinner. And that's the first time that I saw the name of the town, Flehingen, that we are from, and my great-grandfather's birthday. And when I talked to my mother about the trip to the Statue of Liberty, I was really taken aback at how much detail had been lost over the years, to the point where I said, well, where are Pius and Augusta buried? And she really had no recollection of what cemetery they were buried in. And so my original goal was just to reconnect my mother with her cousins, who she had not spoken to for many, many years. And gradually, I decided that I would expand the scope of the search to include all of the family branches in the United States, and then back in the German records as far as I could. Probably once I realized that I wasn't the rightful heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, that's when I stopped. That's when I really lost interest. So person by person, I searched all of you out. I would come home with information, and at the dinner table I would say, guess who I contacted today? And I would lay it out, and our Maggie, who was 6 years younger at the time, always had the same response. So who are they to me? And I, a long time ago, gave up trying to figure out what's a first cousin once removed, what's a second cousin once removed, and so I would just say, he or she is your cousin. And that's really what I consider all of you to be, my Seidenspinner cousins. So the goal of the document, and again, if there are those of you who have not received a copy of the document, please give me your email address, and I would be more than happy to send a copy to you. But the goal of the document is to capture at a minimum some basic information on each person. Their full name, date of birth, place of birth, date of death, cause of death, location of death, burial location, date of marriage, and location of marriage. So it must have struck some of you as being extremely nosy when I called and asked for that kind of information. But if you think about it, that's exactly the kind of information that a Seidenspinner historian 100 years from now will be looking for when they search for the records of their ancestors, us.
Yeah.
And there's an immediate benefit to probing for some of these details. And the example that I come up with is the discovery of the existence of the Seidenspinner myotonic dystrophy in several of our family branches. So I think there's some information from the past and the present that will be helpful to family members in the future. And so, to the extent that I'm missing that information in your entry or in the entry of family members that you know, that's the genesis of my request for the information. It's not to be overly nosy about when you got married, how you got married, where you got married, where you were born, per se. It's to capture the information so that in the future, when somebody else is picking this up, that information is all available. When you think about it, that's the information that I had to work so hard to get from the German church records in Flettingen and Sickingen. So to have it all in one place, I think will be a benefit for someone in the future. I've asked countless times that folks consider going a step or two further and providing me with additional information on their education, their occupation, and really writing an autobiography. And I'd like to think that the sum of who you are is more than what it is that you do for a living or where it is that you went to school. So if I could stand before you this morning and read an autobiographical sketch of our great-grandmother or great-great-grandmother or great-great-great-grandmother and grandfather Magdalena Banghart Seidenspinner and Edward Seidenspinner, I think you would be pretty enthralled to hear their own words in describing their life and who they were. And again, I ask you to consider writing your own autobiography so that other people who read the document can get a sense of who you are, and it puts some real nice meat around the family tree. So please, please, please consider penning something for the document about yourself and or family members who are no longer with us. And some people say, oh gosh, well, you know, I don't know what to write or how to write. And I tell people, quite simply, start with this premise. What is it that you would want someone 100 years from now to know about you and what your life is about? Start with that. And so don't think about the present, but think about somebody who doesn't know you. What are your likes? What are your dislikes? What are your pet peeves? And the thing is, once you give me that information, it's not embedded in stone. I like to think of this as a very fluid document, and you can change it at any time. I would really like people to feel that they can own their own entry in the document. And so anything that you put, I always send it back and say, is this what you would like for it to say? Is this how you would like for it to look? And so there's an editing process. My goal here is to only put things in the document that have really been approved by you. And I'm talking about kids, even who are 10, 12, and up. Just put a little bit about what